Okay, weiter. So, what we want to focus on today is finish off this shir, which is the notion that there are no practical halachic ramifications of somebody who is a kofer or a minor or an apikoros is absolutely untrue. And we're going to look at some of the very real life practical halachic applications that if somebody has the din of a kofer or a min or an apikoros, it has real world applications. So we'll take 2 or 3 of them. Again, we are not, for the sake of the record, the next sugya we're going to start, hopefully still today, is how this plays out halacha l'maisa with people that are not religious today. And this is a big sugya. Yeah. But we're just going to, so that we're going to deal with very soon. We're first just going to finish off with a couple of sources here. So it's source 6, is a Rambam in Hilchas Eidos. Says the Rambam, Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Yud. Yeah. No, I'm missing something. Hold on. Rega. Sorry. So just to complicate your life, page 6, on the old page 6, there's a Shulchan Aruch at the bottom of the page. Yes? Siman Lamed Daled. It's the same thing. The Emma says it's the same thing. It's Eidus. Is somebody disqualified, if somebody is a min or an apikoros, are they disqualified from being an aid? And the answer is yes. The Shulchan Aruch paskins. Siman Lamed Daled Seif Chaf Beis. HaMoisrim apikorosim v'hamumrim Pechusim mehagoyim upsulim laedus. If a person has a din of an apikoros, he is, in a certain sense, deemed to be of less standing than a Gentile and is posel laedus. Okay, and now we can go with that to the Rambam, who says the same thing. The Rambam here is hamoisrim apikosim v'hamumrim lo hitzrichum. Chazal did not even find it necessary to include the heretics amongst the list of those who are disqualified from testimony. It's so obvious. All what Chazal saw fit to include in the list of those who are disqualified are those who are Rish'ei Yisrael. They are Yisrael, they're part of Yisrael, but they've done bad things. They're Rishoim, and for that reason, for example, somebody who is a thief, so he's a liar, so he's disqualified. He's part of Klal Yisrael, but there are certain halachic functions he cannot perform. He would be disqualified from standing in Beis Din and saying Eidos. We just wouldn't, has no credibility. Aval Eilu, sorry? Nothing, not talking about, we're talking about Hilchas Eidos. Right. If a person doesn't have anything for which you chayv chorus.
I'm saying, I thought that if you say he did bad things, but he's still part of Amisrael.
Correct.
I thought that Karet would say.
We're not talking about chorus. We're talking about the list of those who are posel le'edus.
Okay.
We're talking very technical. Yeah, we're not dealing with chorus at all. Okay. We're dealing with apikorosim vis-a-vis chorus. Says the vis-a-vis edus. Okay. Says the Rambam. Why did Chazal not even talk about these? He says, because we talk only about those who are, in every other sense, they are part of Klal Yisrael, but they've done certain averos which disqualify them from acting as a witness. Aval elu hamoirdin hakoifrin, but these people who are rebellious, who deny him pchusim heim min ha'akum, stronger words, they're less than a Gentile. A Gentile, we don't get involved in their lives, so to speak, and therefore, and those who are the pious amongst the nations of the world, they have a chelik l'olam haba. But ve'elu, these people who are apikorosim, moiridin v'loy ma'alin, they're worse. They're not even part of Chelik of Klal Yisrael. I don't even need, it is so selbstverständlich. I don't need to say that they are, it's self-understood. I don't need to say that they are posel edus, because they're They're not in the ballpark at all. Very strong words from the Rambam. Yes.
We wouldn't call a Bnei Noach an Akum, no? Or vice versa. Once you really Bnei Noach,
You're still an Akum, you're not a Jew. Yeah,
you're a Goy, but isn't there a difference between an Akum?
There are some, but not as far as this is concerned. Not insofar as Hilchas Eidos is concerned. No. Yeah. Hilchas Shchita. Let's go on to Hilchas Shchita. Rambam. Yisrael mumar la'aveira min ha'aveiros shehoya mumcha harei zeh sheichet lechatchila. If a Yisrael is a mumar to, he habitually does one aveira, you can still shecht lechatchila. But tzarich Yisrael kosher livdek es hasakin. You would need a good Jew to check his knife and then give it to the mumar to shecht, because chezkosei she'ena torech livdek. But this is the bit that we want. Im hoya mumar laved zorei mechal shabbos b'farhesia oy ahapikoros or an apikoros v'hu hakofer b'toira u'b'moshe rabbeinu hareu ka'akum shchitos en nevela. Nothing to talk about. It's the Rambam in Hilchas Shchita. Let's have a look at the Rambam in the Hilchas Brachas. So I hope you're getting a sense of a sort of a scope. We've looked at Eidos, Shchita, now Brachas. Hashemeya echad misrael mevorech achas mikol habrachos. You hear a Jew make a bracha, but you didn't hear the whole bracha. Says the Shulchan Aruch, even though you didn't hear the whole thing, mitchilasavat seifa, even though he himself is not chayiv in that bracha, chayiv lanis achrav amen. The assumption is the guy made a correct bracha, and you are obligated to say amen. Avalim hoya hamavorech apikoros. Ein oinen achrav amen. You don't say amen. Says Reb Moshe. Now here I've put here for you two sections from different shuvas from Reb Moshe, and I've cut them short. I've missed, for the purposes of the tape, anybody looks them up and sees them on the sources. I have cut out. I haven't quoted the entire thing; they were too long, so there's only bits of it. But let's have a look at the case. Hinei.
Sorry, by the way, also that's worse than an Akum, because if I remember correctly, there in Shulchan Aruch it says if you hear an Akum say a bracha, you should say it.
That is correct. That's the next Ramah here. So it is worse. That's consistent with the Rambam. You're absolutely right. It's Pchusim min ha'akum. Very good. Yeah. Source 9 here. Says Reb Moshe. Reb Moshe was asked a very interesting question. I'll tell you a funny story before we start. A certain Rav, and I've heard this story possibly said about more than one Rav, who was at a function which wasn't, hosted by the Badats, shall we say. Yeah, it wasn't a very, very particularly religious function. And I think they were honoring educators of a certain organization. And they weren't Shomrei Torah or mitzvahs, but he had to be there. And then they asked him to bench. So, as you know, of course, the word moreh is a teacher. However, this will test a little bit your knowledge of Chumash. There is a phrase that is used where the word moreh is used because it can also mean rebellious, right? So he said, apparently, so the legend goes, he lifted up the cup and very loudly said, Shimuna HaMoirim, Rabbi Saim of Benson. What's Shimuna HaMoirim? Moshe says to the Bnei Kairach, listen, you rebellious people. So there's a double entendre. Shimuna HaMoirim, Rabbi Saim of Benson. Hamorim, the teachers. Take it as you will. Very, very sharp. Reminds me of another double entendre. Of a fellow who leaves his workplace not under the best circumstances, and he asks for a reference. So the following reference was provided. Jack leaves as he arrived, fired with enthusiasm. I thought it was, again, rather clever. There's one more story, which I probably shouldn't say. I won't say it, because somebody might even recognize who it's about. Anyway, so here, Reb Moshe, this is just Milsa de B'dichusa to set the tone for this shaila. Reb Moshe was asked the following shaila. This rabbi had to get involved in a campaign of some sort to do with Israel, and Yeah, I'll behave myself. I was asked to get involved in some sort of a campaign to do with supporting some Israeli whatever it was, and had to organize a banquet. And he also had to invite the local rabbinerin or whatever, the local other clergy from other so-called denominations of Judaism, and to honor them, to give them various honors. And the question was about them benching, etc., etc. So a reform rabbi, reform clergyman, this was the shaila. Be'inyan bracha she'amar apikoros im hi bracha lohitzi achirim v'lanis amen. Hine, b'davar shemuchrach malas kvoidoi b'shvil ha-campaign le'inyonei Eretz Yisrael le'argen banquet. You have to organize a banquet. Ulahazmin gamas ha-rabbis shel ha-reformer v'conservative. Says Rav Moshe, he has no choice. He has to invite them. V'gam lechabedosim b'chibudim shoinim. You have to give them various honorifics. Like a bracha, k'may levar chamoitzi, v'loi ma'iz a tefillah. Is that okay? Is it okay what to do? So again, like I say, I cut out a lot of the tshuva, but we'll get to the meat of it. He posits a very interesting potential machlikas Rambam and Rashi. We'll see a little bit of it. Hine lefiani is daiti borur sha'af im hoya ha'mevarich bracha ketikuna. Even if they would actually read the bracha properly, which is itself potentially doubtful, and immediately upon and thereupon would eat. In other words, if there were absent any other technical disqualifications, kivan shehu kofer b'Hashem u'b'toirosai karoiv harabbis shalohem nimtza shehazkaras Hashem hu etzloi rak kidvorim ba'alma lo b'kavona laHashem yizbarach. Because the majority, the standard assumption is that the vast majority of their clergy do not share our understanding of who or what Hashem is, and almost certainly do not subscribe to that orthodox belief in who and what Hashem is. Therefore, it's just, when they say the word Aleph Daled Nun Yud, the Shem, that's not the Shem Hashem, because that's not what they mean at all. It's not a bracha. This is not a bracha. There's no shaila. Rav Moshe goes straight to the heart of it. It's not a question of, I have a bracha here, but it's a bracha said by somebody who is not Mishloimei Emunei Am Yisrael. Don't I say Amen? Says Rav Moshe just dissects it and says, when they say Baruch Atah Hashem, the Hashem that they know and subscribe to is not ours. It's not the same one. Not my God. This is not my God. Sorry. And therefore it's not a bracha. It's just not a bracha. There's nothing. And then he starts explaining on the basis of a Rambam. Chazinon, after a lengthy exposition in the Pshat in the Rambam, Chazinon meha Rambam, Demisha einoi mamin bikdushas Hashem, hava oisios Hashem kishar diburim. Somebody who doesn't really believe in Hashem, then when he says the name of Hashem, it's just like putei dvarim ba'alma. It's garnish. V'im came poshut shagam k'shemazkir Hashem nami who have a dvarim ba'alma. Ve'ein lachshiv le bracha. It's not a bracha. Have a bracha shem ba'azkaras Hashem. V'chein hu gam ke'ein bo malchus. It's also, there's no shem Hashem. There's no malchus. Now he says, why is he not a malchus? What does malchus mean? Malchus means God is the boss, and he tells me what to do, and I do it. He tells me don't eat treif, so I don't eat treif. I keep Shabbos, don't drive on Shabbos, etc., etc. And therefore the notion of being a melech ha'olam, that Hashem is my boss, Hashem is not the boss of these reform clergy people. It's just simple as that. He does not actually believe that he's the melech ha'olam. Therefore, of course, it goes without saying, he can't be mitzi those who hear the bracha. They don't make brachas themselves. Forget it. It's basically garnished, as we say in Yiddish. It's nothing. Ayin Barashi Gittin. We're going to leave this out. And he says, even the Rashi Gittin shetam zelay sheikh ba'apikorsim kahar rabbis are reforming she'enam aminim gam b'avei dezara sefer Torah shekosvei min v'nimtza. Let's get to the end of the tshuva. V'nimtza sheyesh isur L'chabed laharabbis ha'apikorusim sheyivorchu brichas ha'maitzi. It's also to to be mechabed them to make hamoitzi. Afim mevorchim kedin, even if they technically, all aspects of the technical performance of the bracha is kedin, mishum deberchosam lo nechshav bracha, v'lo yetziu es hashoimim, v'gam ein tzrichen lanes amein, acha berchosa yedidoi Moshe Feinstein. Nothing to talk about. If you really want to know more of the technical bits, have a look there. Yes?
I saw once a video, a panel discussion between two prominent Orthodox rabbis in Germany, I'll tell you afterwards, and a liberal or conservative rabbi, who's a German convert, and they were referring to the liberal rabbi in this panel discussion as Rabina so-and-so. And I thought it was quite clever. I don't know what the approach was, but I thought like Rabina in Hebrew doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just like, still like keeping his face and acting all nice, but they would never address him as Rav. And he would address them as Rav so-and-so, Rav so-and-so, and they would always be like, as Rabina so-and-so said, right? It's the even from within the Yahadut, like yes. Rabina, okay, everybody knows, but the Etzim doesn't mean anything.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe that was my thought. What do you think? Is that something that
I mean, if this is a question of Hakol Lefi Hazman V'Makom, we find ourselves often in difficult situations, and there's a thin line, and it all depends on the circumstances. There's not a question of
call somebody in public like this Rabina than Rav.
Oh, for sure. Or as they used to be called, so you'll sometimes see in the Tshuva Svarim, Harav Mita'am. Ever come across that? So let me tell you about this. Harav Mita'am. There was a time when, and it really goes back to some extent to Sanhedrin, to Napoleon who wanted to reinstate the Sanhedrin with David Friedman, etc., etc. The Yad David. Zinsheim, sorry, not Friedman. Zinsheim, you're absolutely right. Thank you for correcting me. You're quite right. Yad David. So, in Russian, in the Russian times as well, and very much in the German, that there was the of the Einheitsgemeinde, that the Rav was an appointed official by the state, and sometimes, or quite often, could have been ignorant, could have been non-orthodox, and it was known in disparagingly in the Tshuva Svarim. You'll see talk about the Rav Mita'am, the Rabbiner. Yeah? Sorry?
also says rabbis.
Yeah, he wrote rabbis. Yeah, he wrote Reform rabbis. They are known as Reform rabbis. Yeah, so it's rabbi, I mean not harav. You're saying that's the English equivalent of rabbiner. Like nice. Okay. A rabbi shalahem. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes, I mean, the rabbi doctor thing is an interesting one because it runs both ways. There was a time, that's what Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch was also very much involved with, and put it this way, the majority. I mean, there's so many. Just to give you an idea of the way it was perceived. There are jokes. What's the difference between a doctor and a rabbi doctor? So the joke goes. Anybody? The doctor is Reifei Cholim, the rabbi doctor is Matir Asurim. That was the old joke. Heard that one before? So, but it's a throwback. Now, a joke arrives out of a culture. It's because, you see, people like Rav Hildesheimer, for example, they broke the mold. They were going against that. The Sridei Eish, to have a rabbi who's also a doctor and a world-class Talmud Chacham and a Posek, it was the exception that proved the rule, because the majority of them, and that's one of the things that the Rabbiner seminar here was trying to do, and you see this in the Tshuvas. There's a very interesting Tshuva from the Sridei Eish, you may have seen it, where he talks about the Talmidim of the Rabbiner seminar, and how, almost despite the fact that they have academic degrees, but the Yiras Shamayim that they had, and the Diktuk and Mitzvahs, and their loyalty and the tzidkus and the chasidus is very, very interesting. I'll find the tshuva, show it to you. That this was not, but it got a bad name in Yiddishkeit a lot. It's a long story. Not the Rabbiner seminar, Chas v'Shalom. No, the notion, the concept of because most of the time, this was the exception that proved the rule. This is what Rav Hildesheimer was trying to set up, was to, and the Melamed L'Hoyel to change, to break that mold, because the mold was the other way. The mold was that it was studiert, and you have it. I mean, look around in the rest of Germany today, and I won't say any. I won't talk about any places, Heidelberg. I won't say about any. Any particular chas v'shalom, any institutions or any. But you know what I mean. These Judentums and all this sort of stuff. That's what we're fighting against. Yeah. So the Rav Mitam. The Rav Mitam. Next, let's move on. Next tshuva here is, again, I've cut this short. This is a lengthy tshuva. I'm not a Baki. I wish I was more of a Baki in the tshuvas of Rav Moshe. This is one of his longest tshuvas. Even Ezer Chelik Aleph Siman Pei Beis. It runs to, if I'm not mistaken, 12 or 13 anofim. It's a long, long, long tshuva. This is a little bit, if you really want to know exactly where it is, it's in the middle of Anaf Yud Aleph. And he's talking about the validity of a marriage, Kiddushin v'Nisuin, performed by Reform and Conservative clergy. And here we pick out one piece. Okay, we'll pick out one piece, and with this we end the first lesson. We'll end this bit. Hine, Barambam Perikid Aleph Eidos Halachid Isa Hamoisrim V'Apikorim V'Mumrin Lo Yihutzrucha Chachomim L'Noisnan Bichlal P'Sulei Eidos. We saw the Rambam's very strong words that Chazal did not even feel the necessity to include them amongst the list of those who are invalidated from P'Sulei Eidos. Shalei Manuel Risha Yisrael Aval Elu Amordin V'Koifrim P'Chusim Min Ha'akum Weiter. V'chein is a betul v'shulchan aruch shemishpal simul hamadal sif chav beis that moisrim l'apikoros and mumrim pchusim min ha'akam v'psulim le'edus. Chazinon mizeh, says Reb Moshe. You with me? 5 lines in. Chazinon mizeh shepsul ha'koifrim hu machmas shehim geruim me ha'akum. That is their psul. It emanates, it's neivea from the fact that their status is worse than that of Akum. Shahim bedin moiridin v'loy malin. There was a halacha once upon a time when, and this is something we'll have to talk about, although it's very sensitive, there was a mitzvah to get rid of them, physically. Moiridin v'loy malin. Moiridin means you put them down the well or whatever, and v'loy malin. Shalachein v'aday she'inam b'chlal k'sheirei edus shebat Torah. It is so self-evident and obvious they cannot be included amongst those who are kosher edus. The Torah says get rid of them. V'im kain amina shebaru she'en tzorich al zeh din edim sheyeidu aleim b'fnei beistin u'b'fneihem shehem koifrim. And therefore, says Reb Moshe, to establish this status of a kofer, you don't need the din of edim that should be made about them in front of Beis Din and in front of them that they are kofrim. Da'af beloy edim, even without edim, im huchzek lekofer posel edus. In order to attain, the wrong word is attain that status. In order to achieve, also the wrong word. In order to, to gain notoriety, to be marked. I like that, Gabby. To be marked with this mark. The proof is the Rambam in Hilchos Mamrim Paskins that in order to be, this is dinei nefashos, to be meiridin v'loy malin ein tzarich ledin edim. You don't need a din of edim. K'de'isa b'Rambam, as the Rambam says in Hilchos Mamrim, sheme'acha shenisparsem shehu koifer b'Torah sheba'al peh. If it is well known, last page, if it is well known that they are koifer b'Torah sheba'al peh, you go. Where it says it's well known that they are kofer b'Torah sheba'al peh. Moiridin oisan v'loy malin. We literally get rid of them. V'harehu kisha kol apikosim v'ha'emrim ein Torah min hashamayim v'hamoisrin v'hamumrim shekol elu einon b'chlal Yisrael v'ein tzorich loy edim v'loy hasra v'loy dayonim ela kol ha'hoireg echad mehen oisa mitzvah gedola v'heser hamichshel ayin sham. Says the Rambam. Yeah, well, no, don't confuse the matter. No, you're confusing it. This is very specific. It's a different thing altogether. Kanoim poigim boy is a different sugya. So really sorry, yes? So this is halacha of kaifrim, mumrim, apikorosim, that meiridin v'loy malin, and you do not need it needs to be mefursum, that this fellow says there's no such thing as Torah min hashamayim. And then, in those days, Moiridin v'loy malin. I stress for the point of the tape as well. This is not operative. It's not halacha today. There was a time when it was. And we'll get to that and how and when that changed the famous Chazon Ish. Okay, V'im Kain, what?
Don't try it now.
Even
Yeah, absolutely nowhere. Don't try it anywhere. It's not. V'im Kain, Gam le'inyan lifsoil edus. Similarly, says Rav Moshe, therefore also to invalidate them for edus. Who b'meshen is parsim levad. If somebody writes a book, somebody writes a blog, if somebody makes his opinions well known, that he does not believe in the authenticity of Torah min hashamayim, that's it. You're gone. We don't need a trial. We don't need Eidim or Eidos or Dayonim. It's a kal v'chomer from the physical halach of Meridin v'lei Malin. You're gone, you're done, you're dust, you're history.
The question would be, how explicit has that to be true?
Nisparsen. It's well known. We can argue the point, but I think especially nowadays it's pretty obvious. Quite easy to find out. If it is nisparsen, that therefore he's a kofer apostle edus even without edim. V'im kain be'uvda zu nifsal mitam shemafursim be'ir lekofer b'harba me'ikrei hadas. If it's well known that this person is a kofer on many ikrim of the das, gam zesh a kofer b'bias haMoshiach is a kofer, that's good enough. V'gam ari kofer mimela b'Torah b'nevuah. The Ein Pirush Rambam Perek Chelik Shemafurish Kain Shemisha Kofer b'Melech HaMashiach is a Kofer b'Torah. The Gam Masik Shom Shemisha Niskalkala Yesoid Me'ela HaYesoidos. Now this is, by the way, please, if you're underlining anything, you're highlighting, this line in Rav Moshe is quite an important one. That the Rambam there, this is Rav Moshe quoting his understanding of the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos, that somebody, because this actually leads us on very neatly to our next topic, which we will start. Somebody that one of the Yesoidos of Emunah become messed up, niskalkel, damaged. Niskalkel Yesod Me'ela Yesoidos harayotza min haklal v'kofer be'ikar v'nikra min v'apikoros v'kotzitz b'netias u'mitzvah l'soynoi l'avdoi. Somebody who is confused, the confused heretic, which is our next topic, the mistaken heretic. But Lemaisa, if he is a kover be'ikar, then it's mitzvah l'soynoi l'avdoi, and therefore Rav Moshe holds the Kiddushin and Nisuin performed by these clergy are absolutely nothing. Okay, and that is the end of that topic, that aspect of it, and we move on to the new sheet that I gave you today, which is entitled The Mistaken Heretic. Levarer, confused or mistaken. We
mistake him as a
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Somebody who is a heretic, but as a result of a mistake. Not that we mistakenly say that he is.
Right.
No. Okay, maybe you found the title misleading. Okay, and confusing and mistaken. Fine. Okay, so I'm glad that we clarified that. In the Hebrew, I've written Levarer Emdas Divrei Hagrach Zatzal, famous, which we will quote. We will see today the quotation from that which is said in the name of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Chaim Brisker. How you doing? Bedin Nebuch Apikoros v'Hamistayef. Okay, and that which arises from it. In order to do this, we are going to see, number one, Quelle Nummer 1, bitte, is the locus classicus for this is the Rambam and the Raavad. There's a machlokas Rambam and Raavad, and this opens up a fascinating topic. What is the topic? The topic is, what would be somebody who does not subscribe to all of these 13, but does so out of, and here we can subdivide, ignorance, lack of intellect, makes a mistake, and any other reason. In other words, not that this person is b'shot nefesh, that he says, it's all a load of garbage, it's all a load of bunkum chas v'shalom. He doesn't say that. But as a fellow who makes a mistake in a point of emunah, what happens if he is struggling with one of these 13, for example? How far does it go? And this, of course, is going to play directly into the topic that I promised you that we will begin to see now, and that is to then be mevarer, the status of the so-called tinokas shenishputed of today, which fall into one of these categories. Now, in order to do so, we're going to learn the sources very carefully, so you'll be knowledgeable on the subject. And like I said, the locus classicus, the Makor, the Hauptquelle, is a machlekas, seems to be a machlekas Rambam and Raavad over here, and then we will see what the other Rishonim have to say about this, the Abarbanel, the Balo Ikkarim, about this Machlokas, but I'm going to do it backwards. And we're going to learn the Briskerov and Reb Chaim first, and then move back